Let's just set the scene for a second. Imagine you're sitting right across from someone. Maybe it's a good friend, or maybe it's a complete stranger, or, maybe it's someone whose opinion actually matters to you way more than you'd like to admit. The conversation is flowing normally, right? You're exchanging questions, little observations, the usual back and forth. And then, suddenly, it just stops. No words, no distractions, no obvious reason for it. Just silence. For a brief second, nothing happens. But then, something incredibly strange starts to unfold. Almost instantly, your mind becomes so much louder. The thoughts just start racing, don't they? Wait, did I say something wrong? Should I speak up right now? Why aren't they saying anything? You're sitting there wondering what on earth is going through their head.
Are they judging me? See, the silence itself isn't actually physically painful, yet somehow it feels incredibly uncomfortable. It's heavy. It's almost like this invisible tension just completely filled the room. And usually, before too long, someone breaks it. Not because they actually have something super important to say, but honestly, because they just can't tolerate the quiet for one more second.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the truth is, silence is rarely empty. The exact moment the words disappear, our brains immediately go to work searching for meaning. As humans, we're literally wired to be pattern-seeking creatures. We're constantly reading facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, all those little social cues. So when those signals suddenly vanish, our brain doesn't just relax. No, it actually works harder. Silence creates this deep, kind of unsettling uncertainty. And if there's one thing the human mind profoundly struggles to tolerate, it's uncertainty.
Section 1. An ancient survival fear.
To really grasp why the mere absence of words creates such immense emotional pressure for us, we have to look backward. This fear of silence, it's not a personal flaw at all. It's a primal, ancient instinct. Long before we had smartphones and bustling modern cities, human beings evolved in tight-knit, small social groups. We're talking 10,000 years ago, where belonging wasn't just some nice emotional desire, it was literal survival. Isolation meant physical danger. Rejection basically meant extreme vulnerability. Because of that, the human brain evolved to pay extraordinary attention to social signals. We became absolute experts at detecting approval, acceptance, and of course, exclusion. When someone suddenly becomes quiet, that feeling of certainty completely disappears. Now fast forward to today. The world has entirely changed, but as we navigate our modern digital anxiety, that exact same ancient machinery is still completely intact in our heads.
Think about it like this. The ancient threat was literal disconnection from your survival group. But the modern trigger? A delayed text message. You send a message to someone important, right? You see the little read receipt. Minutes pass. Then maybe hours. Nothing has actually happened. There's no explicit rejection, no criticism, just silence. Yet that knot of anxiety begins almost immediately. Your mind rushes to fill that empty space with stories. Oh, maybe they're ignoring me, or maybe I said something completely wrong. The silence itself contained zero real information, but it activated the exact same psychological systems that literally evolved to keep you alive.
Section 2, the psychological mirror. Now, what's really interesting about this next part of our explainer is how it shifts our entire understanding of what we're actually experiencing. We aren't actually experiencing the silence itself. We're experiencing a psychological mirror. We very rarely experience silence directly. Instead, imagine 3 different people sitting in the exact same quiet room. Person number 1 deeply fears rejection, so they automatically project that fear outward, interpreting the silence as being excluded. Person number 2 might struggle with their self-worth, so they interpret that exact same silence as harsh, silent judgment. But then you have person 3. They're deeply comfortable with themselves, and they interpret that very same silence as pure, uninterrupted peace. Why does this happen? Because instead of revealing what other people think, silence actually reveals what we think. We project our own internal emotional wounds right out into the quiet. Section 3, the distraction epidemic. Historically, these moments of quiet reflection were just completely unavoidable. You had to sit with them. But today, we live in a drastically different environment. We are literally living through a distraction epidemic, a time where society actively weaponizes noise to help us avoid stillness. The exact millisecond discomfort appears. Our modern escape hatches arrive to save us. Scrolling social media feeds, a barrage of incoming notifications, podcast audio playing in the background, constant messaging, just endless, relentless screen time. We like to view these things as harmless little conveniences, but really they're symptoms of society that is deeply, deeply afraid.
See, many of us no longer just fear boredom, we actively fear the self-awareness that stillness creates. And when we're deprived of silence for long periods of time, we honestly lose our ability to cope with it entirely. Just think about your own day-to-day life. Waiting in line at the grocery store, sitting alone in a cafe, standing in an elevator for 10 seconds, walking down the street. In those tiny, fleeting, micro moments of quiet, you probably instinctively reach right into your pocket for your phone, don't you? And let's be totally honest with ourselves here. The objective in those moments is rarely just to be entertained. The real objective is escape. We are escaping from the silence, and more importantly, we're running from whatever that silence might actually reveal to us. Section 4. The hidden social power. So the crucial point is, what happens to the people who choose not to escape? While so many of us fear the quiet, others have learned to completely master it. Think about high-stakes situations, negotiations, intense interviews, or really difficult conversations. There is always this highly distinct dynamic at play. The uncomfortable person feels an immediate, overwhelming internal pressure to resolve the uncertainty of the silence. They start over-explaining, they justify, they desperately throw words out just to fill the space. Meanwhile, the composed person, they remain entirely calm. They are perfectly comfortable sitting in that uncertainty. They don't speak simply because empty space exists. And because they are controlled by the discomfort that silence creates, they hold an immense amount of social influence. Silence itself doesn't control people. It simply reveals just how uncomfortable people are with uncertainty. And honestly, nowhere is this more revealing than in our own personal relationships. During the early stages of attraction, there is almost zero silence. We fill up the conversations with stories. We make constant attempts to impress. It's essentially an ongoing performance. But as a truly deep connection forms, that dynamic completely shifts. Two people can sit together without speaking, without feeling any pressure, and without the need to perform. Genuine connection isn't always measured by an endless stream of conversation. Sometimes it's most profoundly measured by the absolute safety of just existing together, in silence. Section 5. The ultimate mirror. Eventually, we have to look past our social dynamics and our romantic relationships. We must confront the ultimate mirror, the relationship we actually have with ourselves. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what happens when we strip it all away. Imagine removing every single distraction. No phone, no background music, no notifications buzzing, just you, your thoughts, and your unfiltered attention. For a lot of people, this is a genuinely terrifying scenario. Not because something bad physically happens, but because something profoundly honest happens. When you strip away all that modern noise, reality suddenly becomes incredibly easy to hear. The deep frustrations you've been ignoring, the fears you've continuously postponed, the loneliness you've so carefully disguised, the dreams you've completely neglected. All of this leads us to one profound, undeniable realization. Silence doesn't create discomfort, it reveals it. The discomfort you feel sitting alone in a quiet room, it was already there. The silence simply removed all the beautiful, shiny distractions that were successfully hiding it from you. So we're left with this stark, unavoidable collision. On one side, you have the curated version of yourself presented online, safely protected by constant messaging and a never-ending stream of content. And on the other side, the real you. Words can be used to distract, to perform, to conceal who we really are, but silence cannot. It exposes the raw, unedited human psychology that our modern conversations and digital lives are specifically designed to hide from the world. Because in a world that is completely overflowing with constant connection and relentless noise, silence remains one of the only true experiences that forces you to truly encounter yourself. And honestly, perhaps that is exactly why we run from it so desperately. Because silence asks a question that modern life rarely allows us to hear. When all the noise disappears, who are you left with?